guys, welcome to another edition of Virtual Tween Baking. I am Abby and it is February, so I thought we would do something kind of lovey and heart-shaped this month because of Valentine's Day, but still something very delicious. So we are going to be making a heart-shaped pizza this month for Virtual Tween Baking. And I have given you guys all the ingredients you need to make this pizza, including some seasoning and some cheese and some sauce. So you're making the whole pizza start to finish. And I have a pretty easy recipe here, and I'm going to walk you guys through it. So before we get started with the recipe, I just want to tell you what you're going to need and what you're going to get in your baking kits. So 2 heaping cups of all-purpose flour right here, 1 teaspoon of salt. We will need 3/4 of a teaspoon of yeast, which is going to make our dough rise and poof up. 1 teaspoon of olive oil. We will need some lukewarm water, which you guys are going to get for yourself at home. I'm not going to include that in your kit. So it's 200 grams, which is just kind of slightly less than 1 cup. I use this liquid measuring cup, and I always measure it out just a little bit less than 1 cup. It's about 200 grams. You are going to get 1/4 cup of pizza sauce. You will get 1 cup of shredded cheese and 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. So this is going to smell good. This is going to taste good. And you're going to be making it start to finish. So let's just jump right into the recipe here. These first few steps go by really quickly. It's kind of just mixing and adding things together. So what we're going to do for step 1 is combine the flour and salt. We're going to reserve a little bit of the flour, just like a tablespoon or so, just to kind of coat our hands with or our work surface for when we have to start kneading the dough. So save a little bit of flour. So I've got my flour here. I'm going to dump it into this bigger bowl here. And like I said, I'm going to reserve in this bowl, this other bowl, I'm going to reserve about 1 tablespoon of that flour. All right, into that we are going to add our salt, and we can just dump that right in. I'm gonna give this a little bit of a whisk. If you want, you can even just use your hand and kind of evenly mix that around, but I'm gonna just give this an even little toss like that, just to get that salt and the flour kind of evenly mixed together. All right, so I'm gonna put that aside for now, and we are moving on to step number 2. So in a small bowl, combine the lukewarm water, the yeast, and the olive oil. So when I make this recipe at home, I usually just mix everything right in my big liquid measuring cup here, but if you wanna do it in a side bowl, that's totally fine too. So I've got my 200 grams of lukewarm water here, and I'm going to add my 3/4 teaspoon of yeast, dump it right in there, and then I'm going to add my olive oil, also dump it right in there. And what I'm going to do now is with a fork, or like with that whisk, we're just going to give this a stir. Try to break up any big chunks of like the yeast or anything like that. And it's going to kind of form this like cloudy looking liquid here. But because the water is a little bit like lukewarm, slightly on the warmer side, it's going to help to activate that yeast a little bit more. So that's why we did that. So easy enough. That was steps 1 and 2. Step number 3 is pour that liquid into our flour. You really don't even have to wait for anything to happen with this yeast. You can just dump it right in, like this yeast mixture here. You can dump it right into the flour. Like that. You do want to make sure though, when you dump it out, that you try to get all of that yeast mixture out of your measuring cup here. We want to try to get as much of that yeast out as possible because we will need that to make our dough rise. So now that we have our liquid mixed with our dry ingredients, we are going to mix this around, and we're going to knead it, which is kind of that like rolling and pressing. We're going to knead it. I like to start by kneading it right in the bowl, because to start off with the liquid and the dry ingredients, it's really messy. So I kind of keep it in this bowl until it all comes together kind of into a ball. So we're going to knead this for a few minutes, about 3 minutes, and then I'm going to just let it rest for about 15 minutes, and that'll kind of let it soften up a little bit and relax, and then we'll knead it a little bit more. But for right now, I'm just going to stick my clean hands right in here, give it a little swirl, and I'm just going to start to kind of press it and scrape the bowl with my hand. Your hand might, oh yeah, I forgot. That's one of the reasons we reserved this flour on the side here. If you want to put a little bit of this dry flour on your hands, that will help with the sticking. So what I'll do now is just sprinkle a little bit of that on my hand. And that'll help the wet mixture from sticking to your hand too much. And I still have a little bit of flour reserved for when I want to put this on the table and knead it. But for right now, we're just kneading it right in this bowl. So I'm kind of just like scooping it with my hands and pressing it, punching it down a little bit. I'm kind of rotating the bowl here as I go also. And it's already starting to come together a bit. You know, it was just like this loose liquid and dry flour mixture, but now it's already kind of starting to form a ball. So I'm going to do this for about 3 minutes, and then I will show you guys what to do after that. All right, so I've been kneading my pizza dough for about 3 minutes. It has totally kind of come into this ball now. You can see in my bowl, I got all of the dry stuff out. So this is all pretty evenly incorporated into this dough ball. So what I'm gonna do now is just put this in my bowl. I'm gonna cover it, and we are going to just let this sit kind of untouched, uninterrupted for about 15 minutes, and that'll help the dough to kind of relax a little bit and rest, and then we're going to knead it a little bit more. But for right now, I'm just going to cover it and let it sit for about 15 minutes, and then I'll come back and knead it some more. All right, so the dough has been resting in this bowl for about 15 minutes, maybe a little bit more. So now what I'm going to do is use the last little bit of that flour I reserved, and I'm going to sprinkle it down on a clean work surface like this, and put a little bit on your hands. That'll keep from any sticking. All right, I'm going to take my pizza dough, pull it out of our bowl, and now I'm gonna knead it on this flat work surface here. So that's just a matter of kind of pressing it, turning it, kind of squishing it, and this is just smoothing out any of those last lumps. And already it looks so smooth and so beautiful. So this won't need too much more kneading, but we're gonna do this for about 2 or 3 more minutes, just to ensure that it's super smooth and that, you know, there's no big lumps or bumps in there. And it's not too sticky or anything. You can see, like, when I poke it, it kind of springs back a little bit. That's really good. So I'm just kind of pressing and pushing and turning. So again, I'll just do this for a few more minutes, and then I'm gonna show you guys, we can either let it sit for 3 to 4 hours at room temperature in the bowl, or I can show you another trick to make the proofing, to kind of speed up that process. All right, so I have kneaded my pizza dough now for a few more minutes, and now I can either choose to put it in a bowl covered with a damp cloth at room temperature for 3 to 4 hours until it doubles in size, or if I want to speed that up a little bit, I can do something called a proofing chamber, which is what I'm going to do today, where you preheat your oven to 200 degrees, and then, this is really important, then you turn your oven off, which is what I just did. And that's gonna kind of let the oven stay warm, because we're gonna try to keep the door closed on the oven for maybe like about 45 minutes to an hour. And that's just gonna help this dough rise really quickly. So to do that, like I said, preheat oven to 200 degrees, turn the oven off, find an oven-safe bowl. So I'm using this metal bowl. Don't use anything plastic. 200 degrees isn't like, you know, super, super hot, but it's hot enough where if it was a plastic bowl or something like that, it might melt or just warp a little bit. So now I'm gonna take my dough ball, put it in my oven-safe bowl here, and I'm going to cover it with a damp cloth. And then I'm going to just quickly put it in my oven and basically let it sit there without opening the oven door, like I said, for about 45 minutes to an hour. And by the time I open it, it should have about doubled in size. And then we can go from there and shape our heart-shaped pizza. I will let you guys know when the proofing chamber is done and the dough is ready to shape. Okay, so proofing chamber was successful. It's been about an hour, and I just pulled my dough out of the oven that was off, and the bowl is still kind of a little bit warm, so it definitely held its heat in there and caused our dough to poof up. It's very, very soft. and poofy and ready for us to shape. So now that my dough is ready and out of the oven, I'm in the process of preheating my oven to 450 degrees, which is very, very hot, which is like, you know, pizzas like to be baked at a really hot temperature. 450 is kind of on the lower end for pizza. So we're gonna do 450 degrees. That'll come up to temp. But for now, we get to shape our soft dough into a heart. So what I'm gonna do here is take my dough out of the bowl, and even the dough itself, from being in that little proofing chamber in the oven, is a little bit warm, which is good. But not so warm that it started to like bake or anything like that, but warm enough where it is nice and soft. You can see I poke my finger in there, like it's very, very soft and ready for us to make a pretty heart. So I'm kind of just like patting this out into a circle. You can kind of use your fingers like this and kind of poke it down. That kind of helps the dough to stretch out. But before, I'm doing this on my like floured work surface, but before we do anything too like permanent of a shape, I'm going to take my parchment lined cookie sheet and I'm going to just transfer my dough over here. And now what I'm going to do is just kind of shape this into a heart. And I put on your recipes a little picture tutorial about how to do that. It's really easy. You just kind of like pull the end of it down to make that kind of heart tip. And then you're just going to kind of shape the rest with your fingers into a heart. And guess what? If you wanted to make it into another shape, you can totally do that. If you want to keep it round or make it into like a square or rectangle, you can do that too. But for February, for Valentine's Day, I thought a heart would be fun. So I'm going to kind of just start to work this a little bit, pull the bottom into that kind of heart tip at the bottom. And again, I'm just kind of using my fingers to press and spread this out. And it's not going to be a perfect heart. I mean, pizza dough is kind of blobby and we're making this from scratch. So if it looks, you know, if it's not a perfectly shaped heart, it's fine. It's homemade. It's going to taste amazing. And it gives it a little bit more of that rustic homemade look. So this is what I have so far. We're getting there. So what I'm going to do is kind of work this a little bit, spread it out with my fingers like this. Try to make that like the top, the double-sided like top of the heart like that. And once I get that, I will come back and show you guys, and then we will start to add our toppings. All right, so I have what is a heart shape. I am using this cookie sheet here, so this is kind of a longer heart. And you can see I made it long to kind of spread the dough out. We don't want a really, really thick pizza. At least I didn't. I like a little bit of a thinner dough, a little thinner crust. So this is kind of what I'm working with in terms of size. So now it is time to add our toppings. So first we're gonna add the sauce. I gave you guys about 1/4 cup of sauce. If you don't like a lot of sauce, you don't have to use all of it. If you like sauce, you can use all of it. So I'm gonna just kind of start by dumping it in the middle of my dough here and then using a spoon, just kind of spread it out around the heart shape. But I'm gonna leave a bit of a border of just dough with no sauce or cheese, and that's gonna be our crust. All right, so I'm just gonna kind of dump it on here. I'll save a little bit in case I want more. We'll see how much this gets us. And then using the spoon, I'm just kind of pushing it out around the sides like this. And I probably will end up using all of it. Oh my gosh, it smells good. All right, so we're, again, just kind of leaving a border on the outside for our crust. And if every square inch of this is like not covered in like a thick layer of sauce, that's totally fine. Like as it bakes, you know, the sauce will liquefy a little bit more and spread out a little bit more. It might not look like a ton of sauce, but I can tell you it is enough for this recipe. All right, so that is our kind of thin, even layer of our pizza sauce. And you can see I left a border around the outside there for our crust. And now I'm just gonna kind of sprinkle this cheese, this mozzarella cheese on. Also still leaving some crust around the outside. That smells amazing. All right. That is our cheese. That's about a cup of cheese. And if you need to kind of take it, move it around a little bit, make sure it's kind of evenly distributed, that is fine. In your kits, I have also included a little bit of Italian seasoning, which is like some basil and oregano and stuff. You don't have to use any of this, or you can use all of it, but it gives it that kind of classic pizza flavor. There's a little bit of seasoning in the pizza sauce already, but if you want a little bit more, you can just take a little bit and just kind of lightly sprinkle it on. As much as you'd like or as little as you'd like. My oven is still preheating, but I think my pizza is ready to bake. So once my oven beeps and tells me that it's up to 450 degrees, I am gonna pop my heart-shaped pizza in the oven. I'm probably gonna start it around like 10 or 11 minutes, check on it from there. We'll see how long it takes, but probably the sweet spot for this pizza is probably around 12 to 15 minutes. And again, that can kind of vary depending on how, how caramelized you like your cheese and your crust and stuff like that. But we do want to make sure it's totally baked through so the dough, there's not a doughy spot in the middle. So I'm going to start mine out at probably about 10 or 11 minutes, check on it, and kind of go from there. So when my oven comes up to temp, I'm going to pop this in, and next time you guys see me, I am going to have a baked, heart-shaped cheese pizza. Woo! Can't wait. All right, the oven timer just went off. I'm gonna pull the pizza out of the oven and see. Oh my gosh. You guys. Oh my gosh, this looks so good. This turned out totally perfect. I don't want it to slide. Can you guys see? Let me hold it right here. Look at my heart-shaped pizza. Oh my gosh, I did it. This is, the cheese turned out nice and bubbly and golden. Oh my gosh, this is perfect. Look at that. I don't know if you guys can see that. I am so excited. This is awesome. Wow. So that is our heart-shaped pizza. I'll get another good picture of it and I'll close the video with that. But I hope you guys enjoy this recipe, and I hope you get to share it, and I hope you've had a good February, a good Valentine's Day, and I hope this brings a little bit of warmth to this kind of cold, little bit more dull time of year. Baking always makes everything better, especially baking things homemade. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to try this. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next month for more Virtual Tween Baking, and enjoy your pizza. Bye!